Are are there any delegates from ILO, IAEA, UNODC, and SPECBAL here? Because if there are, you should be in your committee rooms right now. And they're gonna take the roll call, so you might miss your first roll call. So if you're in one of these committees, you should go to your committee rooms now because we're gonna start the ceremony soon. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We just realized that there is empty places here. This room has the capacity for 300 people, and it was planned to be 320 people here. So if we have an additional advisor, please, can you just go back to the main building? Because from every school, we demanded one advisor to be attending at the opening ceremony. We would appreciate your cooperation, please. Chair board, you are expected in your committees. We've got enough spaces here, still empty, unoccupied.
So second and third advisors of each delegation might go to one of these live committees to watch the ceremony. I'm sorry for the delay, but this one is nothing compared to what I had this morning. My flight got delayed for 5 hours, so we're only delayed by 15 minutes. So thank you for your cooperation. First, I would like to invite Mr. Agdam to the stage to make his speech.
morning again, everyone. We are very sorry for this delay. We assume that the committees who were supposed to be in their committee for the live broadcast are still here. So apologies for that from our side. It's not going to be a speech that I'm going to handle here now. This is a kind of security information. The people who are sitting here in this conference hall, there are 2 exit doors to your left and right. So in case of any emergency, you are required to leave the room slowly and calmly. For the committees inside the main building, when you exit the door, there will be an exit to each door's left. I'm repeating again, to each door's left, there is a fire exit and emergency exit. So in case of any emergency, please leave the door and go to your left. Thank you very much for being with us here today. I hope that everybody is going to have a fantastic 3-day conference. I yield the floor to Fabir Khan.
Mr. Wolf, honorable founders and principal, and dear guests. It is my utmost pleasure to serve as the conference manager of EKIN JMUN Model United Nations 2019. This year, we have participants from more than 10 countries, 10 cities, but hopefully 10 countries soon. And I am very grateful to see familiar faces today. So this means that most of the schools that are attending today have been with us since the beginning. 4 years ago, when Mr. Agdam told me about EKIN JMUN Model United Nations, I got really excited because this has been his dream since my very first Model UN conference in 2011. And I'm very thankful to be a part of this amazing, brilliant team. I want to tell you a story about Model UN community. My first Model UN conference was New York JMUN in 2011. It was a fun, yet very challenging experience. I was in General Assembly and there were around 300 or 400 people in my committee. And since it was my first experience, I struggled a lot to learn about the procedures, the topics, and everything. And after a few sessions, I participated and realized how amazing it was to discuss such important global issues with peers from all around the world who have different ideas and different perspectives. From Canada, US, Germany, Brazil, and so many other countries that I do not remember. After the conference, we were kind of sad that we would never see each other again because we were all from different countries, but we still got our contact information. Last year, I was in New York City for a few days, and I remembered one of my friends from that conference was studying at Columbia University in New York City. So I sent her a message on Facebook, and we grabbed coffee that day. That was amazing because we hadn't even talked to each other in the past 7 years, but once we met, it didn't mean anything. Those 7 years didn't mean anything, and we talked about how we're doing and what we did in the past 7 years. Long story short, MUN is an incredible community that will be with you for the rest of your lives. So my only advice to you today is that meet as many people as you can, because you might grab coffee with them in the future, miles away, years later, so you never know. Moreover, Model UN is more than an extracurricular for me, because it contributed to my personal growth more than anything, more than I could ever imagine. And I'm so thankful for my teachers at EKIN, Mr. Güneş, Mrs. Dinçer, Mr. Agdam, and Mrs. Ciritolu for encouraging me to start my MUN journey. I can now explain myself and defend my ideas no matter who I talk to, because I'm an MUNer. I can make this speech in front of you because I'm an MUNer. When I see something wrong, I can speak up because I'm an MUNer. So I'm a good leader, good communicator, and negotiator because I'm an MUNer. So I know that it's going to be really challenging for you at the beginning, but please do not give up, and I assure you that it will be worth it. The main reason why I am attending EKIN JMUN is to help JMUNers start their MUN journeys and help them as much as I can, because I gained so much by being a part of Model UN, and I want to give back to this amazing community. And I'm pretty sure that everyone in our team, in EKIN JMUN team, feels the same way. So we're here to help you, and we're here to help you make the most of your weekend. So I wish you an amazing conference, and I hope this will be an amazing experience, unforgettable experience for you all. Thank you. So now I'm coming back as the presenter. It is my utmost pleasure to call Mr. Wolf to the stage for his keynote speech, but before that, I will read his biography. Mr. Troy G. Wolf is Senior Director of UNA Education Programs and Learning at the United Nations Foundation. In this role, he creates educational programs that raise awareness about the Sustainable Development Goals while engaging civil society in calls for advocacy. His service to the United Nations Association of the United States of America spans 7 years and includes management of government relations, K-12 programming, university partnerships, and philanthropic initiatives that leverage the sources of United Nations Foundation to bring about innovative initiatives and events. Mr. Wolf works closely with diplomatic community, the U.S. mission to the United Nations, UN agencies, local governments, Capitol Hill, and partners in the Middle East to implement quality programs that inform the public and provide pathways to civic engagement. Troy has extensive knowledge of international development and has completed voluntary assignments with the United Nations Peace Corps in Suriname, South America, and 3 operations Crossroads Africa when he served in Lesotho. He plays an advisory role to UNESCO's Center for Global Education Nigeria and serves on the board of the Global Education Coalition, a network of New York-based businesses dedicated to global education. Mr. Wolf is a member of Pi Lambda Theta International Honor Society and Professional Association Education, and the New York chapter of the United Nations Association of the United States of America. He holds an MA in Communications, Computing, and Technology from Columbia University, and a BA in English with a minor in Education from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. So now, I'd like to welcome Mr. Wolf to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, that's good. Let's do this again, you model units. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Very good. School leadership, ladies and gentlemen, teachers, parents, and delegates. It is an honor and a privilege for me to address you at this important assembly of the 3rd Annual EKIN Model United Nations Conference. Thank you to the Secretariat and conference leadership for planning this fantastic event. I want to begin by also thanking Professor Akbar Agdam and Aram Denser for extending an invitation for me to join you at this conference today. This is a fine occasion, and today I pause to celebrate you and your interest in solving global challenges through what we know fondly as the Model United Nations simulation. So in thinking about you today in this occasion, I wanted to share with you my remarks, but I was crossed with a few thoughts. Mainly, what do I say to a group of middle school Model UN conferences, and what do I say to you that you need to hear? And how do I communicate to you so that my style is still authentic in the manner in which I communicate? And so I thought to myself, I'm a teacher, well, a teacher of sorts. Not exactly the type of teacher who you find in a classroom, but a teacher, no doubt. I think of myself as a guide, someone who sometimes leads, and at other times, someone who sometimes follows. Someone who is always learning. Someone who is curious about the world and about the people in it. So let's begin. The EKIN Model UN slogan encourages you to imagine, innovate, and inspire. I don't know if any of you have given any thought to that term or that phrase, imagine, innovate, and inspire, but I have. It's a simple enough phrase, but what does it mean to you? As a teacher, to me, the phrase captures everything that I try to do with youth. Sometimes I have discussions about things we do not see, we imagine. At other times, through conversations with young people, we become so passionate about a thought that it leads us to a new way of thinking or the development of a new product or something new. In essence, we innovate. But always do I attempt to be present and to be inspired by others who demonstrate a passion and conviction for doing good in the world. When I think about your slogan, imagine, innovate, inspire, I think about the development of lifelong characteristics that will define who you become. But your ability to become has everything to do with the mental pictures that you hold of yourself. So it's important to be mindful of your dominant thoughts. What does that mean, your dominant thoughts? Your dominant thoughts are the thoughts that you carry around with you in your heads. Some folks call it the inner voice. Some folks call it the ego. Some folks call it self-esteem. But whatever you call it, it's important that you realize that your dominant thoughts, the thoughts in your head, are the thoughts that will define and create your life. So let's make sure that you are positive. When you wake up in the morning, no matter what you're facing, tell yourself that you are going to have a good day, and believe it. Remember that the mind thinks in pictures, not in words. So keep your mental pictures positive. And to do this, we train ourselves. We train ourselves to always learn, to become students of the world, and to seek out different experiences and opportunities. We train ourselves to be the best that we can be. A former boss once told me that 3 things make a person smarter: the places you go, the books you read, and the people you meet. So along those lines, places you go, books you read, and people you meet, I want to take you on a journey and reflect on the Sustainable Development Goals. It is my pleasure today to bring to you some of the most important news to come out of the United Nations in a generation. As you well know, in 2015, the former Secretary General, surrounded by leaders from more than 170 nations, gavelled in a new set of global goals, known as the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs for short. At their heart, these goals were a to-do list that the world would seek to achieve by the year 2030. Truly having a more ambitious set of goals with targets for 2030 could not be timelier. In my work at the United Nations Foundation, I see the need every day for such goals. As previously stated, most of my work is situated around education, so there's no coincidence that the prism through which I see my experience is through that lens. I therefore believe that people should have access to lifelong learning opportunities that help them to acquire the knowledge and the skills to participate fully in a society. But let's back up a bit. The Sustainable Development Goals did not materialize out of thin air. In fact, a lot of you here today had something to do with their formation, which I'll get to in a moment. But before the Sustainable Development Goals, there were the Millennium Development Goals, or the MDGs for short. 8 goals that the world would seek to achieve at reducing extreme poverty. The Millennium Development Goals were aspirational and inspired policies and investments that helped lift 600 million people out of extreme poverty. They prevented 4.3 million deaths from malaria and improved the lives of millions around the world. Before them, the development community had never had a set of unified goals from which to address the world's most daunting and pressing problems. The success of the Millennium Development Goals proved one thing, that goals do work. With the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework, it's useful to look back on the Millennium Development Goals and acknowledge progress. Please indulge me as I read a few statistics. Since 1990, we have halved the number of people living in extreme poverty, and we've also halved the mortality rate of those under 5. In the 19 years since the Millennium Development Goals launch, the number of primary school-age children who are out of school has also been cut in half. In Southern Asia, 103 girls are enrolled in primary school for every 100 boys. By comparison, in 1990, 74 girls were enrolled in school for every 100 boys. On climate, since 1990, 98% of the ozone-depleting substances have been eliminated. New HIV infections fell by almost 40% between the years 2000 and 2013. And during the same period, tuberculosis prevention, diagnosis, and treatment saved an additional 17 million lives. Worldwide, 84% of children received at least one dose of measles vaccine in 2013, an increase from 73% in the year 2000. Around the world, 2.1 billion people have gained access to improved sanitation, furthering the spread and limiting of disease. Data from 2015 revealed that 91% of global population has access to improved water resources, and 95% of the overall population has access to cellular technologies, evidence that an interconnected world is vastly becoming a reality. Much has been accomplished since the launch of the MDGs. We can say the world has changed in many, many ways. With these shifts, however, the United Nations itself is also taking stock and using the moment to look forward at its strengths and challenges and opportunities for growth. As such, the United Nations, along with member states, has identified 6 critical areas for action: the need for greater integrated support at all levels, the need for better alignment of resources, seeking opportunities for greater collaboration between agencies where it makes sense, leading the implementation of the data revolution, taking a more systemic approach to assessing risk and promoting resilience, increasing transparency, and making the United Nations more consultative with civil society, private sector, parliamentarians, and other stakeholders. As such, the 2030 Agenda is the result of the United Nations' most transparent and consultative process to date, spanning more than 4 years in its initial planning. The design of the Sustainable Development Goals involved more than 8 million people around the world who had the opportunity to choose their own priorities for the goals through something that we know called the My World website, a global option survey intended to capture priorities for the post-2030 development agenda. We even enlisted Model UN students, such as yourself, at middle school, high school, and college conferences, and involved them in the opportunity to vote on the My World platform. My World asked users to choose 6 of 16 issues and to rank them in order of priority. They included an array of topics from climate change and education, phone, internet, and access, transportation and roads, better job opportunities, protection against crime and violence, access to clean water and sanitation, reliable energy at home, supporting the unemployed, and even more. I dare say that they covered everything. But what an amazing opportunity, and how genius that the United Nations would involve all of us in deciding on our future. The hallmark of the 2030 Agenda includes a preamble which focused on what we call the 5 Ps for sustainable development. Those are people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. A political declaration by government leaders, including a commitment to leave no one behind and to engage youth, such as yourself. A section on the how do we achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, known as the means of implementation. A framework for follow-up and review and strategic intervals to make sure that progress is being made, and the inclusion of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that included 169 targets focused on achieving 3 extraordinary things: ending extreme poverty, fighting inequality and injustice, and fixing climate change. But these goals will show how success in one target or indicator will lead to success in another. They are all interrelated. As it relates to the goals, we can use an example in education to illustrate the interconnectedness of the issues. How the lack of education could lead to a life of poverty. How poverty could impact access to healthy food choices. The lack of access to healthy food could lead to illness. Illness could lead to a cycle of poverty where an already vulnerable family has little options. As such, it's fair to say that the Sustainable Development Goals framework focuses on key economic drivers of poverty alleviation and seeks to facilitate outcomes that better account for trade and investment from the private sector, to better account for their important contributions in development, health, education, and social opportunity in a local context. At a time when much of the globe is torn apart by conflict, there's something powerful in the realization that 193 member states came together years ago and agreed upon a to-do list for the world. In thinking about you and your slogan, imagine, innovate, and inspire, before I end, I'd like to share with you a poem of inspiration. Think about what each of you can do to make the world a better place. It couldn't be done by Edgar A. Guest, 1881-1959. Someone said it couldn't be done, but he, with a chuckle, replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one to not say so till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face. If he worried, he hid it. He started to sing as he tackled a thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Somebody scoffed. Oh, you'll never do that. At least no one has done it. But he took off his coat and he took off his hat, and next thing you know, he'd begun it. With the lift of the chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit it, he started to sing as he tackled a thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you it could not be done, thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just starting to sing as you tackle the thing that couldn't be done, and you'll do it. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite our school founder and general manager, Yasemin Reştol, to the stage. Oh yeah.
Okulumuz adına hepinize hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. Biliyorum ki bu konferansta Türkçe konuşulmuyor. Ama ben yaşım itibariyle biraz a little bit kuşağı, hani konuşabiliyor musunuz? Biraz. Devlet okullarında maalesef İngilizceyi öğrenebilme şansımızın olmadığı bir dönemden geliyorum. Çok şanslısınız. Seçtiğiniz okullar, seçtiğiniz etkinlikler bu dili çok iyi konuşmanıza sağlayacak imkanları sunuyor. Bunu çok iyi değerlendireceğinizi zaten biliyorum. Bu benim ilk ve son Türkçe duyuşunuz olsun. Kendi aranızda biliyorum ki zaten hep İngilizce konuşacaksınız. Bu çok acı bir şey. Dünden beri konuğumuzla a little bit düzeyinde anlaşmaya çalışıyoruz. Benim kuşağımı oldukça üzen ve eğitimin gerçekten ne kadar da evrildiğini şu anda sizleri izledikçe, okulumuzdaki öğrencileri izledikçe görüyorum. Çok şanslısınız. Ben ayrıyeten Mr. Wolf'a çok teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Çünkü 3 günlüğüne New York'tan sadece eğitim adına ülkemize ilk kez gelen arkadaşımız sadece eğitim adına kalktı geldi. Sizler için geldi. Eğer öğretmenseniz, eğitimciseniz bu dünyaya dair dertleriniz oluyor. O dertlenenlerden biri de o. Kendisine sizler adına ve okulum adına çok teşekkür ediyorum. Thanks a lot, Mr. Wolf.
Now I would like to invite Madam Secretary General Isabella to the stage.
Honorable Conference Advisors, Mr. Agdam and Mrs. Dinçer, Honorable School Founder and Headmaster, Honorable Conference Manager Efe Birkan, Honorable Director General Alara Aykanat, Honorable Deputy Secretary General Azra Kaya, Honorary Guest Mr. Wolf, and organizational teams, academic teams, advisors, and delegates. It is my utmost pleasure to welcome you all to the 3rd annual session of EKIN JMUN. Our academic and organizational teams have worked restless nights to try and bring you the best version of EKIN JMUN so far. I sincerely hope that you have the best 3 days. I would like to shortly address my delegates, as I know you guys are very stressed or even confused at the moment. My dearest delegates, for most of you, the environment you are in right now is strange, new, and maybe even frightening. It can be difficult to adjust at first, but you might get bored or even totally lost. We are here to tell you that is okay. All of us went through similar experiences when we first started. My one request of you is to ask as many questions as you need. Asking questions is the key to becoming a better person. Being a well-rounded person will get you wherever you would like in your life. Don't be afraid to admit that you don't know something, because none of us can ever have full knowledge. The best we can do is try to achieve the variety of information and aim to be the best version of ourselves. Without further ado, I would like to yield the stage back to our presenter, Efe Birkan. I hope you guys have a wonderful 3 days.
Now I would like to invite our Deputy Secretary General, Azra, to the stage.
Good morning, distinguished advisors, guests, dear delegates, honorable EKIN College founders and administration, members of the executive and academic teams. We have the utmost pleasure of welcoming you all to the 3rd annual session of EKIN JMUN, where I hold the pleasure of serving you here as the Deputy Secretary General. Before I move on with my speech, I just want to tell you all, like Efe, how I started MUN in EKIN, and that I was just 5 years ago. It might seem like a long time, but it just flew by. I was sitting where you were, an 11-year-old little girl, thrilled, a little bit frightened, and overall confused. I didn't know back then that I had entered a stage in my life that was going to change my whole world. Imran taught me a lot of things about myself. Imran taught me that there is no limit to learning. You can learn from everyone and you can teach to everyone. Imran taught me the value of caring about our world and attempting to solve the world's greatest challenges to maintaining peace and security in platforms like this. And it would have been very, very hard for me to imagine 5 years ago that I would be here on this stage serving as the Deputy Secretary General of a conference like this. So, to all of you who are feeling a little bit frightened, confused, and are having a hard time to figure out what's going on, don't be afraid. We have a dozen of people, and more than a dozen of people, ready to help you. And our members of the team, our valuable team, Miss Secretary General Isabella Yazıcı, Conference Managers Karan Keskiner and Efe Birkan, Miss Deputy Director General, Miss Alara Aykanat. It has been a very big pleasure to work so hard with all of you and share this experience of crafting this incredible conference with you. It was such a remarkable thing for me to experience at this time in my life. So, and welcome to you all once again, and thanks for the team for their hard work and their cooperation. I sincerely hope that you will be enjoying the conference as much as we did, working hard to prepare you the best experience possible. Thank you.
And now the Secretariat will officially open the conference. And we don't need a microphone when we have such a theme, so.
EKIN Junior Model United Nations 2019 is officially open.
One last thing, I'd like to invite Mr. Agdam to the stage for a quick announcement.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you, the exec team. This announcement will be about the lunches, though it was sent to you through emails. We're going to entertain the delegates and the advisors and everybody here for lunch breaks in 2 different intervals. Two different groups will go for lunch at 12 o'clock. The first group will be DISEC Committee, SPECPOL Committee, UNODC, UNEP, IAEA, and ILO. I'm repeating again, DISEC, SPECPOL, UNODC, UNEP, IAEA, and ILO will be entertained for lunch at 12 o'clock. The second group will be at 12:30, that's Security Council, UNHRC, UN Women, World Health Organization, SOCOM, and UNICEF. Repeating again, 12:30 lunch group will be Security Council, UNHRC, UN Women, World Health Organization, SOCOM, and UNICEF. This is for a better service and for some security reasons. Thank you very much, and welcome back again to EKIN JMUN 2019.
So since we started a bit late, the first committee session will start at 11:10, so you're still gonna have 20-minute break. And you can go to the main building now. The staff will lead you to the main building.